Hello everyone and welcome to the 343 Football Podcast. It is our second episode of the podcast today, and joining me again is a full complement, same as last week. We've got Ali.
Hi.
We've got Daud.
Hello.
We've got Qudama.
Hello.
And myself, Jaffa. Now, it was an interesting weekend. A lot of things happened across Europe, and we'll dive straight in. And we'll start at the Etihad, where all the pre-match talk was about which striker does Liverpool start with. And Klopp showed he cares not one iota, as he started both Firmino and Diego Jota. Now, it was 1-1, a very tightly contested game. Ali, I'll come to you on this one. How did you think the game unfolded from a tactical perspective? Did Klopp's selection kind of unsettle Liverpool because they weren't used to that sort of lineup, or was it actually all right, is the way you saw the game?
Well, first of all, this game is known as the James Milner derby or the Raheem Sterling derby. Tactically, what Klopp should have done is he should have stuck with something which he's more familiar with instead of messing around with the team. It's a big fixture. If he got a win at the Etihad, that would have been a big thing. I can't remember the last time Liverpool won there.
I can't either, to be honest. I think it's there's been a trend with the Liverpool-Man City games where it seems to be the home side always wins.
I totally agree with you there. I remember years ago going from Martin Skrtel scoring an offside goal, Raheem Sterling scoring another offside goal. It's been going back and forth at the Etihad. It looks like Liverpool always going to win at Anfield, Man City going to win at the Etihad.
So you're saying it's evened out now because of VAR?
No, I'm not saying
the
that.
offside goals have not played a part in one team winning than the other.
It was a weird game. In the second half, it seems like both teams just kind of walked into each other's dressing rooms at half time. You said, "You know what, lads, we'll settle for a point." I think there seemed to be moments, like even in the 80th minute, where you felt like a goal might come and someone was going to grab a winner, but it never seemed like any of the teams wanted to put it into that higher gear to push for the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, people usually use the expression a game of two halves to talk about one side dominating one half and the other dominating another half. But it was a game of two halves, more about the approaches, where both sides were... It was kind of ignoring the midfield at the very beginning. It was a 4-2-4, it felt like, for both sides, where Liverpool's front four were there, everyone pressing high up, no midfield, just go straight there and try and get some shots on goal. Obviously, there was two penalties in the half. Now, for me, when you talk about Liverpool against Man City, you want to see a high-level octane football. Do you remember the 2-1 victory for Man City? I think it was in the season where they got the 100 points, where Sané and Aguero scored. Now, that was almost like the pinnacle of that rivalry.
With that
and the quality of football. Yeah.
Insane game.
This game, I mean, I know that the lack of crowds have kind of watered down the occasion already, but you thought at least the quality of the football would be there. And it just, I think I agree with them. I feel like both sides were just like, a point is good enough for us, and we'll head into the international break with minimising the injury risk, really.
Yeah, I think that's what both coaches cared
I think
about.
the pinnacle was the 2018 Liverpool 4-3. That was riveting, that match.
Champions League, though?
No, that wasn't Champions League.
That
was when Van Dijk just joined Liverpool.
Yeah.
And what happened was Liverpool were blowing Man City out of the way. Then Man City he came with a comeback, and Aguero misses at Anfield yet again.
Yeah, it was nearly 4-4 as well. Yeah, I would say, I remember watching that match, I was thinking, damn, now this is the dawn of these two teams are going to be fighting again for the Premier League for the next couple of seasons. And I think Liverpool made a statement then. Obviously, they were quite unlucky not to win that year, but yeah.
No, I feel like both teams seemed to struggle not struggle, but showed that they weren't playing at full strength. Like both City and Liverpool had some key players missing, but also the star players that did play didn't really shine that night. And Kevin De Bruyne was really off the ball. I don't know what you guys made of his performance. It's probably the worst I've seen him in a City shirt, to be honest.
I thought he had a decent match. Overall, obviously,
he
nothing was coming off for him. That was the only thing. But he was De Bruyne. He was trying really hard. I think the penalty miss, in my head, I kept blaming it on the wet conditions, and I was thinking, oh, he must have slipped. I think it was just an off day for him, wasn't it? There was no slip or even a little stride.
I mean,
with his other.
I still saw some of the patented trademark De Bruyne through balls and the cut across that he does all the time. That puts a player on a tap in,
but none of them came on.
There was overall he definitely struggled in the game. You know when De Bruyne just feels unplayable and he seizes the game. Yeah, I didn't see that side of him on Sunday.
Gabriel Jesus, that was an assist from De Bruyne.
Was it? I think.
Yeah,
it was,
he passed it into him, and then obviously that absolute sweet touch that people say if he meant it or not.
No, De Bruyne had a good game. He had a really good game. He just screwed up a penalty. My energy went from 0 to 100 when Liverpool scored. Then my energy got drained down again. I was like, what the heck?
It was
Yeah,
bec-
how did you like? Were you happy with the point? as a
Yeah, I'm
Liverpool
gonna take a point from the Etihad. Let's be honest.
fan? Yeah.
You know, Manchester City are one of the best teams in the world. I'm happy taking a point back, and when we play them in Anfield later on next year, hopefully we beat them then.
the worst best case scenario is you taking a point from
Yeah.
the City Stadium. Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, Klopp's played a system of front four with Coutinho, Salah, Firmino, Mane before, and they didn't really gel before. So I'm quite surprised he's done it again.
So it was a bit of a risk, wasn't it? But
Yeah.
then look at your bench and look at what you guys usually play, and the players that are out at the moment. Fabinho, he's a pivotal point for you guys. Thiago's out also as well. I'm guessing he would have been like a Fabinho type of role, trying to do what he does as well. And then obviously you got the legs of Chamberlain. He's out as well. So like I understand why Klopp did it.
Yeah.
And,
I do think the numbers missing midfield were definitely the reason he chose that formation, because
Yeah.
you'd like to think
Mhm.
that if Fabinho was available, I don't think he would have deviated from the 4-3-3
no.
to the way that Fabinho dominates certain games. Like last year, he remember the one where he scored and he absolutely dominated.
Yeah, I was
Manchester
Rome
City's
watching that
midfield.
game. It was pretty
Yeah.
nuts.
So for me, I agree with Dowd. I think the key players missing for Liverpool kind of forced Klopp's hand in the form of Jota as well. It couldn't really be ignored.
Yeah.
In the end, I actually don't think it was too detrimental. I think
No.
if you think about that game as an end of season April fixture where the winner takes the title, I think Liverpool's setup might have been all right. It's just their approach and mentality, because it's so early in the season and with COVID and the international break coming up, I kind of think it dictated a little bit
Yeah.
what both managers went for towards
Mhm.
the end of the game.
Half of Liverpool's team's gone. Van Dijk's gone. Alexander-Arnold's injured. You've got Fabinho who's injured. Thiago obviously recovering, but he's
Joe
still
Gomez
injured.
is not up
Yeah.
to standard as well.
It was interesting to
Yeah.
see Klopp
Very
and,
suspect.
Guardiola mention the again complaining about the 5 substitutions, and we're seeing teams like players are falling. Like,
But
left,
I
right,
think
and
that's
centre every week.
interesting. That like from a Liverpool fan, that's not good. But from a fan of football, it's wide open. Now people are going to be talking about Spurs or Leicester or Southampton
Yeah.
when they beat Newcastle, the Alan Shearer derby. They were top for a moment. That's never happened.
Yeah,
But-
I think. Sorry to cut you off, Dad, but I think that was definitely another aspect of the game as to why the second half was so dull. I think players are already just a bit out of breath. Like they're just tired. They've
Yeah.
played so many games now. Champions League 3 weeks in a row. I think
They're like,
it's just-
forget
it's
this,
starting to see the
man.
effects.
Get me off this pitch right now.
So obviously
Yeah.
they were complaining about that. Both Klopp and Pep were equally complaining about how their matches in the Champions League and in Europe, and they're not getting enough rest in between that, and obviously playing even earlier in the day, and they're not like accounting for the rest that the players will need. And obviously Ollie came out as well. He was very vocal about it. But it's interesting because I know you were saying it leaves it wide open, but as a fan of Liverpool, would you not want your team to be rested and be in the most fighting fit condition to go and get those results? Or are you more interested in just football and seeing, actually, you know what, teams are a little bit more tired, a bit more lackadaisical, and someone, even in their bench, will probably shine because they're not playing as much football, and they probably have a bit more stamina, the drive to actually do something that the other players might not, might be a bit more tired to actually to push that extra level.
Well, last season when I watched Liverpool dominate the league, literally dominate everyone, it was getting a bit boring. We never had any great moments. Those moments were taken away with us from COVID. And, there's been some iconic moments when Aguero scored his late win against QPR. You've had Man City do that last few times. You've had the special story with Leicester City. It's like the beautiful story behind winning the league title. Imagine winning the Premier League without your main centre back, the arguably the best centre back in the world.
Yeah, but that
come
doesn't,
back from that. It's
you're
like an
So
underdog.
you're
You're not addressing
relishing-
the
you're relishing
tiredness
challenge for the
aspect.
Yeah,
start
that's
of
what I'm
the
saying.
Yeah.
It's that challenge.
But
you
would
know.
you not agree that the Premier League could do the little tidbits of, actually, you know what, these guys have been playing during the week. Let's give them the late kickoff and let's give them an extra
they
day.
absolutely can.
Do you know what I mean?
We'll get onto that debate later on, but I do want to touch on your point there with how exciting the league is when you're getting predictable results. So the next one we'll go to is to the Emirates, where the Gunners were in good spirits, having won their first game at Old Trafford in 14 years, only for Villa to come to town and spoil the party. So a 3-0 victory for Aston Villa, that's quite significant. And I'll give you a stat, Qudama, on this one, where Arsenal haven't scored a goal in open play for 4 league games. Now, Arteta coming in was seen as a positive move. They've now won a trophy, and I believe they won the Community Shield as well.
Yeah.
And, his style has kind of... Arsenal's identity was always about exciting attack, leaky defenses. It seems to have gone the other way, and now fans are quite disgruntled with what they're watching. Do you believe that Arteta needs to change approach a little bit to actually excite the fans and actually, take the front foot in matches as well?
Yeah, 100%. I think at clubs like Arsenal, results are one thing, but the style of play is another. The team is, like you say, expected to almost turn up and play the same way every week and get results playing that way. So it's not just enough for the fans to see their team doing well. And as well, he came in and they were known to have a bit of a comical defence and with errors every week with Mustafi and Luiz, and it seems like he made that his priority to fix, and he's almost done. I don't want to say too good a job because that sounds like a cliche, punditry line that Townsend would say, but he's really emphasised their defensive stability to the point where they're just putting men behind the ball, and it looks like their defence is sorted, but really it's hard to concede when you're playing that conservatively.
I mean, they have for me, they have an interesting tactical profile because yes, there's a defensive solidity that seems to be the focus, but they also like to play out from the back, which equals higher risk.
Yeah.
There was a Europa League, I think, where they played against Rapid Vienna and they conceded in that manner where Leno couldn't pass it out correctly.
Yeah.
So you've got a team there that's caught between, I don't want to say caught between two styles, but Arteta is trying to take total domination of a game from a possession point of view and from a defensive point of view. And it against certain teams, like against Man United, away, that was almost the perfect approach. Nullified everything Man United had to offer. They got the penalty. They weren't even great in that game. They just got the penalty. They controlled what they needed to control, and they won that match. Against Aston Villa, to be honest, and this is my take, I actually think that Aston Villa, not only were the tactics better on the night, but they've actually got more dangerous players. When you think about
100%.
Grealish, when you think about McGinn and Ross Barkley, their dynamism and the way that they took the initiative,
Watkins as well.
Arsenal didn't have anything in response.
Yeah, I mean that front 3 or 4, however many it is now, is flying. Grealish honestly is without a shadow of doubt the best player outside of your conventional top 6, and I think there's a couple of squads where if he was to move to them might even be their best player. So he's an unreal talent. Ross Barkley looks like he's found the love for football again after being really inconsistent at Chelsea, and I would agree with you. I think when you compare the attack that Aston Villa have to Arsenal, there's an argument to be made that they actually have recruited more cleverly and they've got the better players.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into a proper debate about Ross Barkley later on because he's definitely an interesting player to have a look at the moment. And just on that Grealish point, Ali, do you agree with Khudama that could Grealish, for example, start for every single team in the top 6?
It depends what system the manager plays in, but any top 6 team would take him.
I don't think you could get into Liverpool though. They've got Shaqiri. Shaqiri's that Grealish for him.
It's not that. It just depends what system it is and what coach it is. But if you're saying if he's a quality player, then yeah, you could go to Manchester United easily because you see how terrible they are.
No, but
you could go to Arsenal
he's
easy.
He's a slinky type of player. He could play for Man United. He could play for Tottenham.
But he works hard. He could even play for Man City.
He's a very complete attacker, isn't he? To be honest, I didn't think he had too much pace about him, but watching him running down that left flank yesterday,
yeah,
he really seems a lot quicker than I first anticipated. And obviously the strength. Did you see the way he absolutely bullied Bellerin for that third goal?
It's just not that. He's playing for the badge. That's the team he supports.
I think it's a good point.
I remember the first time I've ever watched Grealish play was against Liverpool, FA Cup semi-final. Took Liverpool apart with Ben Teke up front.
Yeah. He was always that wonder kid, wasn't he? And he came into the ranks really early, so he had an adjustment period. And I think when they went down, that probably benefited his game a lot to learn a bit more of his trade in the Championship as well.
Yeah. I agree with that, but he had a lot of pressure of him as well at a young age.
Yeah.
He's not old.
You're right.
People need to remember that.
You say he's a complete attacker, but he's also really almost a complete footballer in that because he's been playing from such a young age and because he's a local club, like you say, Ali, he galvanizes the team when he's on the pitch. He's their talisman. He represents not only the club but the city. He's just indispensable to Aston Villa, and he's backing it up with the numbers. Reminds me a bit of Lascelles when he was at the peak of his Newcastle career. He seemed to just elevate everyone's level on the pitch because of what he represented to the club, battled for the badge, and Grealish is...
Yeah, I do like that. I think in an ideal world, I would love for every single team in the Premier League to have a homegrown player be their leader and be their best player. Obviously, it's a difficult thing to have, but I think it would
have a lot more back in the day, didn't you?
It would add a lot of character to the league.
There's quite a lot now. You look at Trent for Liverpool, Foden for City. He's not obviously their main player now, but he's still got the potential to be a homegrown legend for the club. Not to put too much pressure on his shoulders.
You got Rashford there as well.
Harry Kane at Tottenham as well.
Yeah.
I would say Harry Kane, but
and there's more outside the top 6 as well. I mean, You got Newcastle with the Longstaffs. Obviously, they're not on the same level, but there seems to be a lot more homegrown. Because obviously the transfer market now, everything's ridiculous.
One team that has a player like that is Southampton with James Ward-Prowse. And let's touch on them very briefly, because on Friday night they went top of the league. Now that was very brief, and I did enjoy their stop the count meme that the Twitter account put out. In light of the election, I thought it was a nice way to seize on a moment to go viral. But Dowd, I do want to ask you with Southampton, how high up the table do you think they can finish? Or is this team not necessarily a contender for the league, but can they threaten the Champions League positions?
No, I don't think they can. I think they're playing really good football, but it might be a momentum thing. And you see it a lot throughout the years. The way they are playing football, though, it's definitely hard for the teams to break down. They're playing very fluid 1-2 football, bringing in a lot of the wing backs. Actually utilising Shea Adams. Shea Adams is actually showing he's a very technical but also quite aggressive type of player in terms of physicality, and that actually complements Danny Ings really well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of aggression in that side. I haven't watched that game as a Newcastle fan. It was really, really depressing how easily they would outmuscle us, tackle us, and when I say that, not in the middle of the park, in the final third for them. So it was, for example, I looked at the stats after the match. Moussa Djenepo had more tackles than an entire back line. That's a winger.
Yeah.
So it's incredible.
He's working hard for it.
Yeah.
And he's playing well. And look at their midfield four. James Ward-Prowse, he's quite physical. Oriel Romu, Moussa Djenepo, they're all really strong physical players. Yet he's getting the best out of them technically, and I think that's the difference.
Like, what I want to say is there's a big difference between Newcastle and Southampton. Newcastle have Steve Bruce as a coach.
Yeah.
Then you look at who you have on the other side. You have Hasenhüttl, coach RB Leipzig, coached in the Champions League, helped RB Leipzig get second in the debut season in the Bundesliga. He's an established coach, and I think the team is based on him. He's a hard-working person.
Yeah.
Because Steve Bruce, he's a bit lazy, and I think sometimes when it comes to football,
that's not a nice way to talk about it.
No, it's a truth though. If you look at football teams, the manager kind of like replicates it. So if you look at Jurgen Klopp, for example, he's a hard worker.
Oh, so you're saying like the manager's touchline demeanour kind of goes into the team and the way they play?
Basically.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I kind of see I actually agree with your examples that you're giving.
Yeah.
But I don't agree with that as an overall statement, because you can get really casual laid-back managers who won't even get up the pitch once, and their team's absolutely wiping the floor with the other team. It can happen.
Yeah, but I'll give you another example. Jose Mourinho, half his teams are dirty pieces of shit. You have Ramos in there. You'll have some piece of shit there. Just want to put a dirty tackle in, and that's what Mourinho's trying to put in their Spurs right now.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he came out and said it in interviews, to be fair to him.
Yeah.
So he's,
it's on the documentary as well. He keeps on telling Tottenham players, you're too nice, you need to be dickheads. But honestly, every single episode is just him basically saying, stop being so nice, start bullying the players. And I think Hasenhüttl has got that perfectly right with his team.
Yeah. I'll tell you what though. Sorry to interrupt you, Kuradama. If I'm honest with you, I totally forgot what I was about to say. What the heck? This is crazy.
Let's move to Kodama's point now.
Okay, move to Kodama's point of view.
I must have tripped you up, but I was going to say is, I think comparing Hasenhüttl and Steve Bruce, I know they just played, so we're talking about those two teams. And as a Newcastle fan, I'd rather not, but it's almost an insult to Hasenhüttl to discuss them. I think Southampton, they were better than us on the night, but they've also been more impressive than most of the teams they've played so far. Hasenhüttl seems to get the best, or seems to best his opposition tactically almost every game he plays. Exception, being the 9-0 last year. But since then, I think they've been almost top 5 quality for a year now. If you look at the table since that 9-0.
I mean, it's quite ironic that you mentioned about how much better Hasenhüttl is than Bruce, considering Bruce did the double over Hasenhüttl last season.
It is,
And this is Hasenhüttl's first win against Newcastle, and I think 4th or 3rd time facing them. So it's a
really.
But
Football's
a funny game like that, though.
But on paper, though, Hasenhüttl has got a better team. His back three are tall, physical, ball playing defenders, perfect for the modern setup of the game. And I just think it's taken him this long to get him.
Jack Stevens, for example, I wouldn't want any of him over any of our defenders. And to be honest, maybe Yannick Vestergaard though, because I like his he's so tall.
Armstrong from them either.
Armstrong I wouldn't have.
I think it's like like Ali says, Hasenhüttl is just that good a manager, and he's got them playing unbelievably now. And maybe Champions League is a bit out of sight, but I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if they do end up there.
Right, I remember what I was about to say now. Right, if you look at the transfer policy between both teams, you look how great Southampton were, and you compare Newcastle over the last couple of years. Do you not think that makes a difference as well?
Of course, but
Yeah, I mean, Theo Walcott for £10 million, I thought that was more of a token signing, to be honest with you. They've got Nathan Redmond and Musa
Bring the
Djenepo.
local lad home.
Yeah, but they
Yeah.
also have Obafemi, do you know what I mean?
I'll be honest, if that was a token signing, that was a good token signing because he
Yeah.
really, really troubled Newcastle on Friday.
yeah, he was great.
Shirt sales, it's not just about playing a game; it's also about making money sometimes, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this, and I want it to go on record that Michael Obafemi will become someone really, really good. I would say even half as good as Rashford. So I'll say, a season 15 goal a
All right,
season.
so
striker.
there's your first 343 Football Podcast prediction. Michael Obafemi will be a very good player, so that's one to watch. So I think that one will be,
Not as good as
concluding our,
Rashford, but like, yeah, you know what I mean.
that'll conclude our Premier League review for this weekend. So let's go over to some of the European games that happened. There was quite a lot of exciting fixtures, and we'll first start in Germany. So we'll go over to Munich, where Haaland, one thing to avoid another awkward interview, decided just to score the one goal this time in a 3-2 defeat against Bayern Munich. Now, this was a home match for Borussia Dortmund, and you'd think that for them to be able to topple Bayern, which is an insurmountable task in itself, they have to win this game, don't they? So how consequential is this 3 defeat going to be, do you think?
Well, we said it in a few earlier podcasts that this Borussia Dortmund team is very impressive, and with a bit of luck they could go all the way. But like realistically, and when you talk about their opposition, Bayern Munich are just on a different planet, let alone a different level. Like I watched the game, and they were competitive. They kept up with Bayern, probably one of the toughest fixtures that Bayern Munich have actually had in a long time, barring that freak loss to Hoffenheim. And was Hoffenheim won it?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, the 4-1
Hoffenheim.
defeat. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they pressed them well. They created chances. You said Haaland only scored the one, but he genuinely could have had a hat-trick. And I think it really boils down to one difference between the two teams, and that is Robert Lewandowski.
Lewandowski.
That man is just insane. Absolutely one of the most lethal finishers I've ever seen ever to grace a football pitch.
I mean, I'm with you on it, because I almost want to sit here and say something like, Dortmund just don't have enough, or Lucien Favre isn't the right tactical manager. Like, he plays pretty football, and maybe he just doesn't have that ruthless streak to take them to the next level. But when you talk about Bayern Munich, it just feels like whoever they face up against, they're going to come out winners at the moment. Lewandowski in the form of his life.
It's just like it's innate to him.
Yeah.
He knows where the goal
And
is.
there's
He
some
knows
sort
how
of-
to get the ball in the goal. That's it.
And Hansi Flick as well. There seems to be some sort of lucky charm about him. Well, lucky charm is probably doing him a disservice, but he seems almost like I have this aura where can you actually get the better of him
Yeah,
tactically?
he's got the winning touch, right? Like
Yeah.
he's got the Midas touch, so to speak, and everything about that team now is just in the right place, like right place, right time. Everything's clicking. The manager, the players, like they've got the perfect profile of young talent and the experienced players.
veterans,
They've got the
yeah.
perfect balance of strength and speed and technique and tactics. They're just unstoppable.
Yeah,
That
I mean,
I agree with. Sorry to interrupt you there. What I want to say is, if the fans were in the stadium, would have made a big difference or not.
Oh, 100%.
Think
the
about
yellow wall.
think about
100%.
80,000 crazy Dortmund fans there. It's gonna make a difference.
100%.
Do
Yeah.
you know, I think
It's a shame.
Guerrero's playing the time of his life though. He's playing absolutely amazing.
I've always
in the
liked
last-
Rafael
Yeah,
Guerrero.
he's
5-10
been
games.
really, really good. I think a lot of Bayern, a lot of Borussia were impressive on the night. I don't know who else of you guys watched the game. Royce was really, really good. Brandt looked really good. Axel Witsel was really good. I was really impressed by him in the middle of the pitch. I think he outshone Kimmich as well for me, who went off injured unfortunately. But between them, I thought he was the more impressive midfielder. The one person I wasn't impressed with was actually Sancho, who looks like he's a bit struggling to get all of his cylinders firing this season.
He goes through that, doesn't he? He goes through like a bit of a rough patch, and it's like none of his dribblings are coming off, and then generally the manager subs him and puts him on the bench for a couple of games, and then he comes back on as a impact sub, and then all of a sudden he's back in the first team and he's playing class again. I think that's his cycle of play in the last
Yeah.
two seasons.
Royce never needs warm-up games. He just comes in,
Oh my God, yeah.
instant adjustment, and he's with the pace of the game, and he dominates and
It's like
leads
a
in the
cannon,
game.
man. You know what
Yeah.
you know what you're putting in and what's coming out. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's probably why Dortmund fans and the club management have never lost faith with Royce, no matter how many injuries he's had, because every time he comes back, he can be relied upon to deliver. There's never a bedding in period of he needs to get his fitness back. Do you know how some players who are absolutely amazing will come back and need like 3 or 4 games?
Yeah.
He's not one of them.
No, he was really
And,
good on the night.
He's only very unlucky in terms of his international profile. I mean, he couldn't make the 2014 World Cup, which would be a shoe-in for that squad. They go on to win it. He makes the 2018 selection, and they get embarrassed.
Yeah,
It just seems
Crazy,
like
isn't it?
not quite a bad luck, Brian, but definitely something where
if you weren't a
Royce.
multi-millionaire footballer, you think someone's out to get you, wouldn't you? I mean, like that kind of situation.
He's Mr. Dortmund, man. That's it.
Yeah,
You know, he's the icon of Borussia Dortmund in this one day. Like,
the one that didn't leave, right? Like
Yeah,
the one that
Goethe
didn't
left,
join the dark
Hummels left, Golski left.
Is this like a accepted thing? Like just Dortmund players will just leave for Bayern? Is that like the
anyone
stepping
leaves for
stone?
Bayern are like the top of the tree in that league. They'll get
No,
free
but
transfers from
By
Schalke,
what
from
were
Dortmund.
Manchester United were 20 years ago.
But is that like you know, like a German folklore? Like, oh, Bayern comes knocking, that's it, you're gone. Do you know what I mean?
think if you just look at it logically, it is what it is. Like, how can you hold on to a player that you know is coveting that team, and that team is coveting him? And
Top
he's
of
just
the
gonna wind
food
down-
chain, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
like,
the thing.
You can't do anything but just use them while you've got them. I mean, Borussia know where they're at. Like, you look at Haaland and his release clause. They know they're not the elite of Europe. They know that they are a stepping stone for that next, upper echelon of teams in Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich.
But don't you think Dortmund for the last even decade have been wanting to become that team where actually, you know what, we don't want to be in the shadow of Bayern. We actually want to be our own
By the way,
giants.
Dortmund do that. By the way, they actually pick apart some of the best talents in the league, just not the Bayern ones. So
Yeah.
they
This
are
is
like
the thing. That's
yeah.
what I don't get.
Hogan, Hazard,
Have
Brandt,
they
so many.
Yeah.
have they got like an unspoken word between each other, like saying, actually, you don't touch these players, and if you put a good offer in for our players in the future, it's a given, it's a handshake any time of the
To be
day.
honest, I think you'll see it in any leagues. The best clubs, there's a certain chain, and they'll
Like-
pick apart the best players from the one below it, and then the next one.
But it's so
Every
apparent in
league
Bayern,
It's
though.
No,
compounded
but
even
every
more.
league has it. Juventus have it. PSG have it. You go to bloody Scotland, Celtic bloody have it.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're just almost sheltered by the Premier League bubble that you live in, where all teams are rich. But
Well,
it's compounded.
Everyone
by
liked
the
to go
financial
Manchester
situation of
United,
the
didn't
league.
they? But Manchester United is crap.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. There's been plenty of signings where we been pipped to it, or the player wants to go. Like Hazard, we were so closely linked with Hazard.
But
for
did he
ages.
sign him? Did he sign him?
No,
No,
but
you
Can I just
didn't.
remind
So,
you guys,
so don't talk
the
about.
biggest example of that, a certain local lad, Alan Shearer, that your fans still cry about. That he didn't join.
Wait, you know what Gaza did?
Beautiful.
Gaza said he was going to sign for Manchester United. He was like, get lost, went to Spurs, happy days.
Yeah, but okay. Anyways,
Yeah, vote so.
moving on to the next subject.
Yeah, I mean, the next match we'll talk about, we'll go to the Mestalla, where Valencia, whose squad has been absolutely depleted over the summer, bad ownership decisions, they lost iconic players like Dani Parejo. And, okay, who comes next? It's Real Madrid. How about a 4-1 win with 3 penalties? And it was one of the most bizarre matches I've seen in recent times, to be honest. I watched the full 90. And you couldn't really say that Valencia played to a level where a 4-1 victory is the final outcome. But at the same time, you cannot argue against each penalty. And they just made, they actually engineered those situations through their own graft as well. Real Madrid had an off night. The fans don't seem to be too happy with that pink kit. And obviously they've got Hazard out with COVID, and I believe Casemiro as well.
Salmon pink.
Modric came in, and he's been brilliant as an impact substitute. So it was interesting to see that they weren't even kind of regain control of the midfield, even though he was in there.
Yeah.
And I was largely impressed by Valencia, not in terms of this team is a Champions League contender or something like that, but just to be able to, despite all of those setbacks, all of those players lost, and come out 4-1 victors against Real Madrid. That is a massive statement for a club like that to be able to pull off that result. I mean, what was your take on the game, Clem, as someone else who watched it alongside me?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, watch it together, and Brazil's probably the best way to describe that game. Like you say, 4-1 is flattering. At the same time, it's not, because they, 3 of those came through penalties, and you say 3 penalties. What was the ref doing? But then you look at the penalties themselves, and you think, all right, they're all penalties.
Yeah.
The fourth one came through a very comical own goal, but once you remove that, those comical aspects to the scoreline, Valencia were still the better team. Real Madrid started off quite strongly in the first 20 minutes, but I think their lineup was actually just wrong. And questions have been asked of Zidane. I think rightfully so now, because he seemed to build up a reputation where he didn't fear phasing out old legends or benching players to give them the rest that they need when they get to a certain age. And we saw that with Ronaldo, how well he managed him in his last season. But his insistence on starting Marcelo, I think, cost him that game. And the fact that he didn't address the situation that Casemiro didn't start. I thought the midfield with Modric and Asensio was not set up correctly. They didn't have that anchor man behind them. Both those didn't have.
Wasn't Valverde supposed to be that anchor man though?
Who?
Valverde.
Well, Valverde, not really.
No, Valverde's a runner. He's a runner.
He's a runner.
Yeah.
He's not
He's a
an anchor
box midfielder, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So without Casemiro, having Modric and Asensio weren't going to do much of the running. It just allowed Valencia to push themselves
Real Madrid had their chances and they dominated the early exchanges as well.
Yeah,
the Benzema goal capped off a dominating
The
period.
first
for
20
them.
minutes they were great. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they didn't know how to
one of those-
reply.
Do you
after
think
they
Madrid just got lazy, maybe?
I don't know what it was.
I just think it was one of those nights you can't explain.
Yeah.
Not as it wasn't as extreme as the 7-2 against Liverpool and Aston Villa,
Man, that was filthy though.
but it had a similar vibe to it where the team just loses and it almost feels you're powerless to prevent that defeat.
Is
Mhm.
it just basically that the other manager got the tactics right, basically?
I
And
mean,
nullified everything?
tactically it was okay. Honestly, Valencia weren't anything crazy. But in those moments where they attacked, they just somehow managed to rope the Real Madrid defence into making mistakes. Marcelo, I think, was a big example.
Yeah,
and
that's what I mean.
he's one of my favourite players I've ever watched, Marcelo, over the years. And it's a sad
Can I
decline.
quickly ask you this? So, who do you
Yeah.
prefer, Roberto Carlos or Marcelo? Because when I was young, Roberto Carlos was the guy for Brazil. So
I can't say Roberto Carlos and tell you that that's because I've watched him enough. Marcelo, I've watched the majority of his career. Roberto Carlos has a legendary mystique to him where you saw that free kick against France, for example.
Mhm.
All those worldies that he scored. Galactico, World Cup winner. So yes,
play for in the Indian League as well, John. Don't forget that.
Oh, yeah,
of
he
course.
did, didn't
So
he?
for me, it's like
Who cares
one
about World
against
Cup?
one. You probably could give it to Roberto Carlos, but based on what I've seen personally, it's Marcelo.
Okay, obviously it's just an opinion. I was just
Yeah.
quite curious.
No, that's fine. I mean,
No,
it's good to have this kind of
debate
debate.
to have, I think.
Yeah.
You know,
for
people
sure.
are talking about who's better, Dani Alves or
Isn't that-
Cafu.
I think
Is that
it's
Varane?
almost, sorry, just cut you off. It's funny, isn't it? Like both Brazil have had 2 generations of world class fullbacks on both sides now, and
Who was
both
the Dani Alves and Cafu?
Yeah.
allegiances
Cafu
to
was great.
Real Madrid and Barca as well. There's almost
Mhm.
been like a straight factory
Shame
swap.
in the 2014 World Cup they couldn't have the iconic striker for Ronaldo as Fred Lumberdon and couldn't really do much for them.
Wow.
Good.
But he
Goodness
was
me.
he was
But
good
they
for
look good now.
he was good for Brazil anyways. That's why they kept him on. Didn't
It was
they?
weird because the Confederations Cup in 2013. He was incredible in that tournament.
Yeah, he was.
Fast forward 12 months and he was a joke.
I remember the 3-0
there's
where
some-
Spain Spain lost to Brazil.
With the
Yeah.
David Luiz,
Yeah.
that was one of the best
The
clearances
goal
off the
line
line I've ever
clearances,
seen.
It was filthy.
It's funny, but they're looking good now, Brazil. Maybe we should do a international episode.
Will be coming soon.
Yeah, when the international break's coming up, it seems
Coming
like
up next week,
a
isn't it?
timely situation
Yeah,
for it.
definitely.
Now,
But isn't that Rafael Varane's second own goal this season?
Oh, he's been really.
He's been
really
off
poor.
form, yeah.
Yeah.
I love the Real Madrid back line. Even though
Wow.
Ramos played, he wasn't enough apparently. I mean, but I think it's
What was
like
that, 7
Xavi said,
games
man,
and
that
2 own
game was
goals?
Unexplainable, man.
Yeah.
If it happened on Halloween, you'd think someone else was going.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they do in the next match at Real Madrid. So we'll jump into our debate segment. And the first one up for debate today is something that the managers have been putting across lately about the ones who got involved in European fixtures, saying they're not too happy about the kickoff times that they're getting on the weekend in lieu of what they're playing in the midweek. You know, not enough rest time, not enough prep time. So
But
my question with this debate is, are these managers just acting a little bit spoiled because they've got the best squad depth, or do they have a valid reason to make that argument to say that the kickoff times need to be
Jeff, they're
adjusted?
also complaining about how the rest of the European League has 5 substitutes and the Premier League still didn't adopt the 5 substitutes,
Yeah.
and also piling on the pressure with, decreasing the amount of time and rest they have between the matches. And I think they were especially irked because of it being such big games. And I mean, to be honest with you, never saw Klopp and Pep talking like they did on the pitch line. They probably shouldn't have talked that closely because of COVID, but I mean, hence what we do. But I think with the 5 substitutes, I definitely think we should adopt it. I've actually quite liked seeing more invigorated teams in the second half, but I understand why the smaller teams in the Premier League voted against it, because they would have been steamrolled over in a lot of matches, because the quality and depth that the top 6 have, even the top 7 have now, just wipes the floor with the bottom half of the table. But in terms of the timings of the matches, I don't even know if it's the Premier League that decides it. I thought it was more to do with when
TV.
the TV,
TV rights.
the TV rights and the
Yeah.
listings for that. I thought they had the biggest say in it.
I'm not sure. I think, but your point about the smaller teams, even they're starting to change their tune now when they're realizing how many players they're losing to muscle injuries. It's a bit of a joke, to be honest with you. I think it's British exceptionalism at its finest. It's what got us Brexit, and it's what's got us 3 substitutes. It's like Guardiola said it best. Like, we think we're special. It makes no sense. All the other European leagues, they looked at it. I don't even say logically, because it's that simple. There's more games in a more congested time frame. We need more substitutions, otherwise the players are going to die.
I do think though that the protestations feel a little bit empty when he's talking about that they can't make 5 subs, but only makes 1 or 2 subs in the actual matches that he's playing.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that the players are at high risk of injury, but you're not doing what you're in control of to mitigate that risk. It's just, and then you're making those complaints. I lose respect in terms of that situation. I don't really care. And to be honest, like I said, all small clubs will probably feel similar at the moment, because at the end of the day, injuries are happening to everyone. No one's immune from that. And the depth argument, to be honest, is pretty important, because even a team like Everton, for example, you don't even have to go down to like US Broms and stuff like that. Everton lost 4 players against Newcastle due to injury, and were absolutely a shadow of what they were doing at the start of the season, and now they're on 3 defeats on the bounce. So I do think that we're gearing towards a change back to the 5 substitutes. I just don't think that this big club-led argument is very good, based on how they're also handling their own squads.
No, definitely, but it's a don't shoot the messenger type thing. They're the wrong people, like, bringing forward the message, but I think the message itself is still logical.
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
sound.
I totally agree with that. Just stick to one rule in Europe. If it's night, you're not going to change time of game for full 90 minutes and change 60 minutes for that reason. Just keep one rule, one policy. If everyone in Europe's having 5 substitutes, stick to that.
And
Do you
not to
think they
mention,
would
we've got
change it,
one
though?
more domestic competition than Europe, which already doesn't make sense. I
Yeah,
don't know
that
if they-
makes no
No,
sense.
I think the Premier League will change it, to be honest with you. They've got form for mid-season changes, like the handball rule. Everyone was so sick of the ridiculous penalties at the very beginning,
Yeah.
and now they've kind of made the threshold a little bit tighter. A bit harsher again. And then so I do think the 5 substitute rule will eventually come into effect in the Premier League as well.
I think we're all unanimous on that decision then. Just a case of when they
For
bring it.
once,
But do you think that 5 subs ruins the flow of a match? Is that too many substitutes?
they could be made if it need to be.
For
I think,
example,
You're not going to use £1 million straight away, are you? You just use it when you need to use your money.
No, what I mean is, so you're watching a spectacle, a 90-minute
Right.
match, a competitive match. You're making 3 substitutes, but is the second half not going to feel too stop-start when you're making 5 substitutes in one half? And that's for both teams as well.
So you feel like it's got a pre-season feel to it more.
A little
more or
bit, yeah.
less,
Like, when in the friendlies, when they put the rolling subs on, there's no need to watch the match anymore, because it's just about a fitness exercise. It's obviously there's a competitive edge to the match anyways, but it just feels like it's 5 subs.
Well, this is
too
the
many.
thing I was saying before to Ali. I was saying, as a fan of your own team, would you not rather have the 5 subs and have more invigorated players that have more stamina, that can make more of an effect on the game? Or would you rather have the more, open play version of a game where players are slightly more tired, more likely to make mistakes, more likely to even concede, do you know what I mean? Because they can't compete with the teams that have been training throughout the week, had plenty more rest. Obviously, in this case, it was Liverpool, Man City.
But
They were both.
To be honest with you, I see what you're saying, but I like the fact that, let's say that Man City or Liverpool played 3 matches in a week, and they were up against, I don't know, a Burnley side that only had 1 match in 8 days. I like the fact that it gives Burnley more of a chance to frustrate and get points out of that match.
I think that rings true though more for the last couple of seasons. You see loads of these games. You see all the managers in the Premier League say that no match is easy, no match the other team could not win, and I think partly that does play an effect into this.
Yeah, because for me, like a Kevin De Bruyne at 30% is still better than Ashley Westwood at 110%. So give Burnley a chance to see if they can
but
take
the
something
health
from
of
the
the
game.
players should be the priority though. If the
Yeah.
Man City players are dying
But
halfway through
Their
the
squads
season.
are big enough to rotate.
So
Well,
this
so
is the
if
thing,
they're not
yeah.
3 rotations per game or 3 substitutes per game. It won't even.
No,
out.
but like for example, how many options does Pep have to call upon?
Exactly. But then
Yeah.
Pep is being stubborn because he knows he needs to win the match,
Yeah.
right? So he needs to play his best players, and this is the problem. And this is what Jose Mourinho has complained a few times, where he's like, "Oh, I've lost all my players now. I have to try to get the youth," and he keeps blaming on the youth. And then obviously Pep, the way he's going on about it,
Pep's a right weenie, man. Freaking hell.
well, you
And
know,
Klopp's of the same ilk, by the way. They
Yeah,
both whine.
Yeah, I do agree to a certain extent with Klopp. But Pep's worse.
Have you seen what Klopp comes out with when he loses a match? He is
Yeah.
one of the more bitter losers I've seen in the Premier League.
But
He'll
that-
blame everything.
that helps him become the best, though,
Him,
isn't it?
Dyche, and Pep probably I would say the most.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Dyche
Yeah,
never
Dyche is
stops
hilarious.
complaining.
His players would be absolutely WWE moves on the opposition, and then he'd come out at the end of the game and saying that they were the wronged party. There's something about that guy where I think he's doing it deliberately, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he's just on the wind up, isn't he?
Yeah, but so this is the thing. So, would you rather have more tired players, open to more mistakes, and open to matches where you'd have an upset or more of an entertaining match because people making more sloppy mistakes? I don't know, making
Yeah.
more stupid decisions. And personally, for me, I would want to see, and I don't know if you guys agree, I want to see the best players at their peak fitness playing 100% against another team that's at a peak fitness
Oh,
at
yeah,
100%.
of course.
Because that is, personally for me, that's when you
That's what the Premier League's all about.
that's where you basically differentiate between the best teams to the second best teams, that's why I would say okay, let five subs
Yeah.
come in and let's try and accommodate for the the Champions League matches and the Europa League matches during the week, but then that might start causing a thing where
I don't think we need to worry about the Premier League's job is not to protect the English team's
Quality
quality
performance,
performance
yeah.
in Europe.
oh
I think the five
I think
substitutes. Why should the Premier League have to worry about
it's
it?
the
It's not
business
their
model. Their business model is to try and increase as much viewership
but
as they
to give
can.
favoritism to the top six just because they're in Europe. I think that's one of the weaker arguments for the five substitutes.
I think the player's health, what you mentioned, is probably the top
exactly.
argument.
And also, you mentioned is it a detriment to the flow of the game? But isn't lethargic, tired legs? more
yeah,
of a
that's a
detriment?
very good counter
I
argument.
completely disagree
against that.
because the reason why the Premier League was founded in the first place, and now obviously all this talk about the European Super League, that's going to come about with all the top six teams fighting against obviously this Serie A, La Liga, and other
Why is that the
Bundesliga.
Premier League's
No,
worry,
no.
though?
So the Premier League has been in discussions with actually forming something along the lines of that, and the reason why they made it into a tier system was because of that, and that's why we have the Premier League as it is now, because of the precipice of that idea of having the best clubs in one league where more people are most likely to watch it and more revenue, more income, more TV broadcasting throughout the world. And obviously, they're not opposed. I'm pretty sure they're not opposed to
But what
this
you're
European
suggesting
Super League
is
if
a
it's
more-
coming
more
into
of
their
an
pocket.
insidious motive for the Premier League, like an an ulterior motive, so to speak. I'm saying from a sportsmanship, sporting competitiveness point of view, it shouldn't be the Premier League's responsibility to step in, look at Burnley and say, well, we have to favour this team because they have more games and they need to win more. Like, that should not be the Premier League's
Yeah.
role whatsoever.
Yeah, the priority should be the players' health. You need to remember, after they've retired, what's going to happen to them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them just saying a valid argument, saying, "Well, you've got the squad size. Why don't you use them? Why don't you use your homegrown players that we're trying to increase and
Yeah.
try and make the English game better?"
That's what they're saying. They said we're trying
To
to,
be
use
honest,
them, but we've only
guys,
got 3 subs a game.
Very interesting debate because I think as much as different viewpoints came across, we're all landing on the same kind of conclusion with the players' health being the priority. So I quite like that. You don't usually get that in a debate. So we'll move on to the second one. We'll see how that one turns out. Now, Aston Villa's 3-0 win, which we touched on earlier, one of the more impressive players in that match was Ross Barkley. He's been a much maligned figure in his career. I mean, he's an England international, a boyhood Everton player, and he came through the ranks and started really well with them. Made a big money move to Chelsea where inconsistency starting to hit. So what is the true level of Ross Barkley? Is he this player that can move his game even further with Aston Villa, or do you think that inconsistencies will always plague him as a player?
Well, he really forced that move, didn't he, to Chelsea?
Yeah, it was 15 million. It wasn't really much of a big move, let's be honest.
Well, it was a big move for him, considering his age and everything.
But how good is Ross Barkley? Like, that's the thing.
I think that forced move has actually put perspective that actually, I'm not that good, and I need to up my game. And he's played under 2 managers now, possibly 3. Did Conte sign him?
Signed him, yeah.
Yeah, so 3 managers. Do you know what I mean? And he hasn't been a regular starter for any of the 3 of them. He hasn't really impressed for any 3 of them. I know Sarri tried to implement him into his system a lot more with Sarri Ball, but he just he's just not that type of player. He couldn't have the technical abilities to even compete with
Do you think
the likes of Jorginho or Kovacic.
he's more of a big fish, small pond player?
And
Yeah.
that's the thing, yeah. So that's what I'm getting at. And I think his move to Aston Villa has basically put into perspective what kind of player he is.
The resurrection. He's been revived, man.
So I think when I read about him, one of the things that always comes across is people saying he doesn't really have good football IQ. Like, he's got the athleticism, he's got the physicality, and he's got technical qualities, but he's always making the wrong decisions. But when I saw the way he set up the first Aston Villa goal, I know it was an own goal by Saka, but that reverse pass by Barkley, that's a sign of clever IQ.
Yeah, I agree. I think technically, like, if you look at it from sort of the football manager play stats lens, just to dumb it down for ourselves a bit, like, his technical attributes have always been, highly regarded, and we always knew he's got like a good shot in him, a good pass in him, he can drive the ball. But his mental stats, sort of like his composure, his decision making, it's never been his strong suit. So do you not think it makes sense now that he's gone from a team with league like winner aspirations to a team like Aston Villa who were happy just to stay in the league last season, that now that pressure's off, he's also shining because he just couldn't cope with the pressure. It's again that mental side of his game that is.
Maybe he needed to take a step back.
Yeah.
With his career, it's happened with many players before. If you look at Danny Ings, obviously his happened with injuries when he went to Liverpool, but he took a step back to Southampton. He's already one of the best strikers in the league
Danny
right now.
Ings is a great example. And I think another one is Memphis Depay, who made the money to big money move to Man United, goes to Lyon as a team leader, star player, and now linked with Barcelona again. I actually, to be honest, those redemptive stories of a player who goes to a big club too early and struggles, goes to you say middle level club, not necessarily like a lower division club.
Yeah, there's
Starts
not a
doing well
bad
again.
club, but another example is Mohamed Salah. He went to Chelsea. Initially, he was actually meant to go to Liverpool. Jose Mourinho obviously snuck in there, brought him to Chelsea.
Chelsea is the club that happens at.
Yeah.
And Ross Barkley is like almost different because he wasn't part of that loan
No,
army,
but
it's also the same thing.
But it's happened with Salah, Lukaku, De Bruyne. It's happened to Chelsea many times. But like you say, Salah went to Fiorentina for a loan. They went to Roma for a permanent. Came to Liverpool, and look what he's doing. People think he's overrated, but he's scoring goals for fun.
But I think as a footballer, you'd want more first team minutes. Like
really.
I personally,
Not always.
I would want to play
Personally, but I'm
football
saying these
in the
footballers
first team,
see the
not be. Well, this is the thing. You obviously we're talking about paychecks. I would say the longevity of a footballer is playing as many minutes as you can and being in the first team and being in the action. How else are you going to develop? How else are you going to grow? How else are you going to sell yourself to other big teams?
I think the only position that it suits to just be a big team is your third choice goalkeeper. What a cushy life that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
You just find a contract. If like, for
Schwartz-
example, Man City, you've got Scott Carson.
Yeah.
Scott Carson.
Is Schwartz still?
He's also won a
the
Champions League with
Chelsea.
Liverpool.
Has he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No way.
It's
Oh
his,
yeah, I
isn't
remember
it?
he was at Liverpool. He was a
I've
second
never
keeper
seen
for a
him.
while.
Istanbul 2005. Never forget the day.
Yeah.
He's been around that long, man. I don't even think I've ever seen him play.
Yeah,
That's true.
I even remember Cudicini as well. And then he was really unlucky. And then Hilario was the Chelsea first team starter for quite a few matches. This is talking a very long time ago.
Yeah.
I think it was probably 2006, 2007. But yeah, it was Cech was injured. Carlos Cudicini came on, he was injured. And then Hilario came on out of nowhere and he made a bit of a name himself as well.
Yeah.
But then he was never heard of again.
Now,
I just wanted to mention
yeah.
something. Sorry, before you said you talked about those redemption knocks in football. Barkley hasn't. He's playing well, and like people are starting to appreciate him again as a footballer. But his redemption, really, his arc only ends when he's back at a top 6 club. Really, wouldn't you say?
no,
Do you think he
I
has
do
that in
agree.
him? Do you
No,
think
but
he has that in him, or do you think where he's at now he'll stay at?
I see what you mean, but I actually think what Ali mentioned with Danny Ings is a better example of a redemption arc because Danny Ings is performing well for Southampton. They're not a top 6 club, but nobody could dispute how quality Danny Ings has been lately because he's been showing this one for a year. So I think also the Premier League is so watched, and I think the general team level quality is so good that shining in a team like Aston Villa is good enough for people to rate you again.
You remember Aston Villa is a European club. They've won the Champions League before.
Yeah.
Well, not anywhere, anytime soon. But
Look,
I
they
think
got
it's a
more
different-
Champions Leagues than
No,
Arsenal and Spurs put together.
I think
so
it's
be
the tactics.
quiet.
I think it's the tactics. I purely think that in those big top 6 teams, their tactics are there to win the league. To be part of that tactical setup,
You can't be inconsistent.
you can't be inconsistent. And with this other type of setup where you have outside of the top 6, where you play quite attractive football, but it doesn't always work out. Look, Sheffield United last year, do you know what I mean? that actually suits players like Danny Ings, like Ross Barkley, and actually complements what they want to
I
do
don't
with
think
these
that.
technical
No, but
setups.
That's wrong. You know why? Danny Ings could have done well at Liverpool. He had to come back from 2 horrible injuries. Just remember
No,
that.
I agree with that because, for example, any mistake that Ross Barkley makes in a Villa shirt is not going to be under the microscope the same way a mistake he does in a Chelsea shirt will be. So, yeah, there's definitely
I
truth to what
agree
you're
to
saying.
a certain extent of
At
that.
the
Yeah.
same time, if
Yeah.
you ask Danny Ings and if you ask Ross Barkley, would you rather be playing this well for Aston Villa or would you rather be playing this well for Chelsea?
Oh,
Which one
yeah.
would they say?
No,
They'd
obviously
obviously
Chelsea.
want
No,
to
no,
still be at a higher level.
That's true, but that's not the question. I think the question is, would you rather be playing this well for Aston Villa or be a role player at Chelsea where
Right, but
you're
I'm
not
saying,
playing that well?
do you reckon now that he's taken that step back, he can go, he's 26 now, so he's probably not going to be making any move to it, unless he plays insanely well. But he's not going to outshine Grealish in that team. But say, Chelsea pick him back up. Because it's a full transfer, isn't it? It's not a loan.
No.
It's a loan.
It's a loan. So,
Yeah.
say he goes back to Chelsea and they say, you played well, we want
Yeah.
to keep you.
I mean, I'll answer
Do you
that
reckon he has
question.
that in him
Yeah.
to apply himself?
The thing is he going to fit that Chelsea squad though? Look him out
Yeah.
of attacking depth they've got right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I don't think he ever will be.
Well, I'll answer that question that you said using the examples we've already discussed. Because with Mohamed Salah, he was young enough to struggle at Chelsea, go to Fiorentina and Roma and do his thing, and then come back and assume a superstar role at Liverpool. Whereas, for example, Danny Ings, he's still young enough in terms of he's at his peak, but there's no pressure on him to make another big money move. And I think it's nice to see him being a star player at a mid-table to higher aspiring Premier League club. So I think if Ross Barkley's trajectory ends up him being a star player at a team similar to Aston Villa, I think that's fine. I don't think he needs to go back to a big club and outshine and dominate the same with Salah would. I don't think he needs to.
My point was, do you reckon he could? Do you reckon his level now?
I don't think he's good enough.
Yeah, that's
I
what
don't
I
think
was
he's
trying
good
to
enough.
ask.
I think with Sanchez, he couldn't break into the Barcelona first team for ages.
Alexis.
Alexis,
That's not true.
so no, because
Come on, bro.
he couldn't secure his position as a
I
forefront.
mean, he was playing second fiddle to Pedro for a while, but
This is the thing.
Yeah, but Pedro fitted the
not for
system
long.
for Guardiola though.
Well, this is what I'm trying to say.
Alexis had plenty of games for. He started Clásicos and everything.
Let me get
The
those
reason why he
up.
moved to Arsenal was because he couldn't secure his plans as part of the plans of what Barcelona wanted, and initially when he came on from Udinese, it looked like he was he's gonna absolutely blow the park out of how Barcelona were playing, and he was
To
going to
be
be
honest,
very explosive.
Just looking at Alexis Sanchez's stats, his 3 seasons, 25 league starts, 29 league starts, and his last season was 34 league starts. So if anything, the end of his reign, he'd already secured a spot. He was playing more than at the very
I
beginning.
think wasn't that just before they wanted, they decided to shift to bring Neymar in, right? So they had a look and said,
Yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah,
was
it
it.
was.
That was
that
it.
was it.
Take
So
out-
he was great, but he was never going to.
They just upgraded him.
Yeah,
That was the same time when Alexis pied Liverpool off for Arsenal as well. I remember that.
But yeah, he pied him
At
off.
that time, it was a good decision. Right?
No, but he
Funny
pied
how
them off
football
Arsenal,
changes.
and he absolutely changed the way he played and how he led, the whole Arsenal team for certain matches. He was the pivotal point man. He was like the actual.
But he was never he never needed that rebound. He was always at a high.
He wasn't a
level.
crap player, just to let
I
you
think,
know.
I
Yeah.
think my point with Sanchez is that he came in. He went to a slightly less bigger club, with slightly less aspirations in terms of Champions League and that consistency. Yet he shined in that tactical setup.
Do you
at
reckon
that time.
that was the catalyst though, or was it just he learned his he's applied his trade at Barcelona. He's a better player, more experienced, and he came to Arsenal heading into his prime, and that was why he.
And then he went
played
to
his own
Manchester United and fucked up.
I don't understand that Manchester United
Man, is he
first
too
day.
busy playing the piano still?
First day rang this agent and wanted to rip up his contract.
Yeah.
Come on, that's fabricated. It must be highly fabricated
I
or
just thought he was joining City, innit? And then he realised.
well, no, he rejected City for Man
I
United.
know,
Yeah, money talks.
Yeah,
That was a fantastic decision by Alexis Sanchez in the end.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean that concludes the Ross Barkley debate, and I do want to end it on a little bit of a light-hearted note, lads. We saw what happened to Ademola Lookman this weekend, and we saw what happened to Kieran Tierney this weekend.
Yeah.
Which was the more embarrassing moment to you?
without a shadow of doubt, Lookman.
Lookman, man.
Lookman.
96
Oh, I have laughed
minute
so
penalty.
hard. Kieran Tierney, the way
I think
he
what's
did
funny,
a breakdance,
I
man, in the
watched
middle of
it
the pitch.
on as the moment happened, and I was doing all the round on the socials. I watched it. I cringed, And then I watched Match of the Day the next morning because I didn't catch it on the night. I cringed and I watched it again. And then I saw it again when Jaffa was watching it on Match of the Day when he was watching it. I saw it again. I cringed again. Like every time I see
Man,
it, I just can't.
he's such an idiot.
It seemed like he tried something new. Like people practice the.
That's what should have been done. He should have practiced
should
1,000
practiced
times.
it 1,000 times and then try it. It looked like he did it for the first time. It was
Scott
horrible.
Parker was fuming.
I
Oh
wonder
my
how many
God.
times he practiced that in his back garden during lockdown and thinking, I'm going to have my moment. The penalty.
But not for a draw, man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
He-
If you're like,
That's not the time.
definitely.
Especially when you're at a team like Fulham.
Also, this was his first professional penalty, by the way, in his senior career as well. Like, what a way to start that.
Yeah,
You know what it is,
I
though?
agree. For a team like Fulham, they need every single point they can
Yeah.
get. That's the thing. And
For
look,
the first time me and you are agreeing right now.
oh.
But you know what it is though? I actually will. He's got bollocks. Like, I mean, to be doing that in the 96th minute, like, fair fucks to you, mate.
I think he
Man.
was
I mean,
already
loads of people
thinking about his Instagram caption, wasn't he, when he was lining
yeah,
up for penalty?
Yeah, loads of people have bollocks, but do they have the proper mind frame to use them
No, but
properly?
the
Do you know what I
thing is,
mean?
You do that Panenka,
Man,
say
his
he
bollocks
does
are
it.
getting chopped off by Scott Parker. All I'm saying. Freaking hell, man.
No, but say he does that, it goes in. Everyone's talking about like the nerve on him, like ice through his veins. I
Now
can't
you
believe he did
now
that.
what people talking about right now?
Exactly.
What if
There's no in between with the Panenka though. You're either the shittest player on the planet or you're like the next best thing since
I
Messi.
will-
thought he was the next coming of Pirlo? Let's be honest. He actually thought he was.
Who is there another player in recent times that's failed at their Panenka?
I mean, it happens from time to time, yeah. But
Well, not that
I don't
bad.
think in a manner like that, that was the uniqueness of it. It's just how the fact that the West Ham keeper committed and still was able to pick it up.
Oh my god!
As if it was a child,
so
like-
That's the
slow
worst part.
motion.
Like, do you know
yeah.
when you see those videos of parents letting their kids shoot a penalty and then diving over the ball to give them the little, oh, you scored a goal.
Yeah,
I felt like the West Ham keeper was like, okay, I did that, but I'm just going to catch it anyways. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was that embarrassing. But I actually disagree with the answer, you know. I thought the Tierney moment was more embarrassing.
Really?
Because at some point down the line,
What?
Lookman will have a penalty that he'll score and he'll be laughing about it and put like the cheeky smile emojis. No one is ever gonna give Tierney that moment back. You felt like a newborn baby giraffe, and like the way he fell down in stages, it was like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, tripping over himself.
I think
The
That
only
worked.
you know how the theme of the podcast has been a bit about redemptive arcs. The only way he could have a redemptive arc if he parkoured across the Emirates Stadium. You know, oh look at him doing brilliant jumps.
Oh my
That to
God.
me, the Tierney moment is more embarrassing than
it was
the
the least
Lookman moment.
graceful thing to
I'm
happen
still-
on a football pitch since Podju's
Yeah.
dance at the FA Cup.
Oh,
No,
100%.
I'm still trying to work out what he was trying to do. Was he trying to put his leg over it, make it look like he's passing it back to the keeper, but he's not. But then he messes up, and then he tries
I
to.
think he tripped himself up.
No,
Twice. Like how do you?
Yeah,
do
like,
that?
twice,
in the
yeah.
same motion before he tripped up. Then mid trip he was like DJ Khaled, another one, and like, he just, I don't know how he managed to do that. It was impressive in its own way, to be honest.
Honestly, being in his group chat right now, can you imagine how much his teammates are rinsing him?
God, I can imagine they made memes of him already, man.
It's
Like,
the group icon. It's the gifts are flying. 100%. It's just,
oh
there's no
my God.
redemption, like you say.
So we'll see what the international break has to give us, because it was definitely a very entertaining weekend of domestic football. Thanks a lot for joining us on the podcast, lads. Don't forget to check out the socials. You've got the Twitter and Instagram at The Dressing Room 9 and the YouTube channel, Just The Dressing Room. And we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, we also are on all the major platforms for podcasts, so Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. So yeah, give us a rating as well on the ones that you can't give. I know Stitcher you can. So yeah, and we'll hopefully be posting, hopefully once weekly. But thank you. We'll see you again.
Thanks, guys.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.